Hello everyone, my name is Roya, and today I am reviewing To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Monocle Blackgoose. This is about a girl named Anarchus, who is an indigenous girl living on an island, and in our story, in our setting here, dragons choose a person, a human, upon hatching, and then basically the magic system is that the human and the dragon work together to do certain things. Basically, this book doesn't go too far into detail about that because our main character spends most of the book like still learning that, and that's not really what the book is about. But basically that's the purpose of, having a dragon choose you, blah blah blah. So her island does not typically see dragons, but one day she discovers that a feral dragon has laid an egg and like left it there on her island, and it hatches and chooses her. And so then she has to go to the mainland where she is almost the only indigenous student there, in basically a Dragoneer's school. And she's also one of only two women there. So she's one of only two women, and then she's one of only two indigenous students as well, the other of whom was actually raised by a colonizer family as like a servant or whatever. He basically spent his whole life like not in his own culture. So I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars, and there were several reasons why. So firstly, this book is queer and also technically kind of poly. So basically our main character has two love interests. She falls in love with a maid who is a woman, and then she falls in love with the other indigenous student who is a dude, and she doesn't have to choose between them at all. She basically can be with both of them. But the only barrier there is that, societal things are going on that prevents her from necessarily being able to be with both people openly, but in her own culture it is perfectly acceptable to be with more than one person. So there's never any kind of like, oh no, should I be with this person or this person? It's very much like she's with both of them, and they're totally separate. There's no like bearing on each other at all. And I thought that that was really, really great. I want to see more poly romances and all of that. And then also the fact that this is very real to kind of what happened in like when it comes to the native rep. There is such thing as in this book as the Great Dying, which really happened. There is such thing as a lot of the things that happened historically. The year is like 18 something, and the calendar months and days are the same. They're not given fantasy names or anything like that. So even though there is a lot of fantasy aspects in this, it really does what it can to tie it to the actual events and the actual history, even though it's in a very different world. The cultures in here are very different. So the native people do a lot of things very differently. There's like this whole, a lot of the men on her island go away to sea, and they do whaling and fishing and stuff like that. They have certain tattoos that mean certain things. Like there's one time when her father shows up at her school and he has a new tattoo, and she thinks, oh, he saved someone from drowning recently. So there are like a lot of different things culturally that are fantasy. Our colonizer people also have a non-English necessarily culture. They're like a mix between like German and Finnish and kind of other Scandinavian sort of like their whole thing is very, the words and the titles and the names that are used are very pulled from different things that are not British and such. And so it's definitely very inventive in that regard. There's a lot of fantasy stuff going on, and you can kind of see where it pulled from. I also like, what I really liked the most about this book was just the overarching theme of our main character's culture being different in a way that the people who she is now among do not understand. So they'll ask like, oh, what school did you go to? And she's kind of like, school, you know, because they all go to fancy boarding schools when they're once they're like 12 or whatever, whereas on her island your family just teaches you all the stuff. They don't really have schools, but you still learn everything. And so then they're surprised that she can read and write and whatnot. And she's like, why would I not know how to read and write and all of that? And so they have this perception of her people as being like uncivilized when that's clearly not true. And after having read some historical nonfiction last year, you know, you can definitely, you know, I definitely figured like, yeah, clearly like her culture is very civilized and did not need any help from the colonizer people at all, and yet they think that they need to civilize her when they obviously do not. And in that regard, even her culture actually seems more civilized because they're very accepting of queer couples, of poly people, of just like whoever wants to do whatever, and like nothing is like unusual to her. And so when she falls in love with a woman, the woman is like, oh no, you know, we can't and we can't even spend time together because if any kind of rumor were to happen, blah blah blah. And she's like, what, you know, like that people, you know, people police other people's own business, what? And then just the fact that like men are so jerk like, whereas on her island they're completely not, and they're very upstanding, nice human beings because they were raised by a lot of different people and not just men forever and all of that. And so this book had so many good points to make, and it was so good the entire way through, and I absolutely adored this book. And I also thought that, you know, even though there weren't a lot of dragons in this book, when obviously they are dragoneers, that is like the point of her having gone to the mainland in the first place, but it's not really about that. So we do see her with her dragon the entire way through the book. She is very protective of her dragon and all of that. But her learning the things she needs to do as a dragoneer is not as important to the story as, like, for example, her goal of wanting to return to her island once she's learned everything and bring her dragon's talents back to her community to help with the things that her community needs. And that's such a foreign concept to the people that she's around, which is just crazy. So anyway, this is such a good book. I adored it from start to finish. It was so, so good, and please read it. I'm definitely going to be reading the rest of the series. I think there's at least one more book in the series. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are on this book, and if you've read it, let me know in the comments, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye!